You're listening to the Mind Your Own Business podcast, aimed at helping photographers learn how to make the leap from amateur to pro. Hello and welcome to the Mind Your Own Business podcast, a joint effort brought to you by Photofocus and Kuehn University. This is Shamir Young, and I'm joined by my co-host and man of the year, Skip Kuehn.
Whoa, man of the year.
So fitting, yes.
Wow.
I voted for you.
Only, thank you. You are my one vote, and I'm only man of the year at, this address in Osprey, Florida.
Totally counts.
But thank you. Hey, this is fun today. I love this idea. Here's what we're going to do, everybody. If there was a title for today's show, it would probably be just lessons we've learned. Now, the reason for this is that it's been an incredible year, and both Shamir and I, after each podcast, we'll have a 15 to 20-minute conversation about, oh my God, I can't believe that our guest said this or shared this, because it's been an amazing year of just talented, giving, supportive artists that all have a common denominator of wanting to make the industry better. And we've learned something new with every podcast, and sometimes we've just been reminded of the importance of staying focused. So the bottom line is we all know how to focus our cameras, but there's no autofocus on our business or on life or on a lot of the topics that were shared this year by our guests. So we're going to take advantage of all of our guests for the last 11 months one more time. And we're going to talk a little bit about points they made and things that I think if everybody pays attention to, including both of us, it's going to make 2020 one hell of a great year. So what do you think? Does that sound like an idea?
Excited.
Now that I did that whole long intro, you can't say no.
I'm excited. I think this is perfect. This is perfect.
All right. So you want me to kick it off?
Yeah, go ahead and start.
All right. Let's talk about the importance of staying focused on your dreams while staying relevant, because they both kind of go together. And there's a quote I used years ago about, if you don't follow your dreams, somebody else will, and you'll wind up working for them. So Kuehn kicked off the year, and she's a remarkable photographer, and she talked a lot about relationship building. She also related it to, at the time when she started, there were very few women in photography. It was the Good Old Boys Network, and it was not common to have a woman out in the front line with a camera. And that led into following your dreams, the importance of staying relevant. And Shamira, I go back and I listen to that podcast every now and then because she was so spot on the importance of, it's a slow process. You just have to keep following your dreams, and doesn't mean you can't change your goals now and then, but your overall dream of whatever you want to do, you need to keep it in focus. And
I know from personal experience and talking to Karen and other photographers that it requires a certain amount of stubbornness and courage as well. Especially, I can only imagine in her time when it was not so common to see females in the industry back then, and she still stuck with it. That says so much about her and her courage.
And by the way, back then, I met Karen, 20, 25 years ago when I was at Hasselblad. So we're not talking about somebody that is technically an old fart and on her way to the nursing home. Far from it. She is young, active, busy in photography and doing something different on a regular basis as she keeps trying to stay focused on her dream and keeps growing as an artist. So it's not like it was, back at the turn of the century. It's not like that. And our industry is changing every single day.
Absolutely. So one that I loved was with Brent Watkins, and the point that he made about we're not selling prints, but we're selling the experience. I think as photographers, it's easy to get wrapped up in our equipment, in our gear, in our lighting, in our lenses. And while all of that is important, just as important is the experience that we give our clients. And I love that he emphasized this, because realizing this point will help your business be that much more sustainable. I've talked to clients where I'm in the process of doing a photo session with them, and there's music and there's coffee and we're laughing and we're having fun, and they're asking me for business cards for future family sessions or for people they know before they've even seen the images. If you make the experience wonderful for them, that increases their satisfaction so much with you. And by the way, you have to have good images. You better be putting out good photography. That's a given. But as photographers, we need to understand that the experience begins even before the photo session. So in the way that we communicate with them, how we talk to them on the phone during the photo session, and then after the photo session, with the way that we deliver the images, whether that's them coming to your studio and you play some music and show them the images, or you're meeting in their houses. People will remember the way that you make them feel just as much or more than the final result as far as the images go. Would you agree?
Oh, yeah. And for those of you who don't know Brent and his wife, Terry Ann, are based in Barberton, Ohio. And like many of you, they've just got a good, solid, what I would consider a bread and butter wedding and portrait business. He does a lot of seniors. He does some pageant work, a lot of weddings. He's got a great little studio that was part of some urban renewal property. He's got an amazing building with, raw brick ceilings and all that. Parts of it there's one section that's an old warehouse. It's just
really
beautiful.
Cool.
Yeah, it's just beautiful to shoot in. But Brent and Terry Ann are all about that experience. And again, it ties back into what Karen started the year out with, and it's relationship building with their clients.
Yes.
So it's a good lesson to remember. And also remember, the minute you start worrying about how many prints you're selling as opposed to the total experience, you're turning your business into a commodity. You're not selling prints. You're selling the experience, and you're selling memories. And this is a word of mouth business, and do it right. And word will spread all over the place. And that kind of ties in with what Michelle Celentano brought to the party the next month, which essentially was never turn a customer away just because you don't have the skills. And she talked about the importance of taking every workshop you can, expanding your skill set. I've been talking for years, and also included in my marketing programs, where I'll talk about the importance of diversity. And if you did a good job at the wedding, why wouldn't you want to be there when the first child is born? And as the family grows, why wouldn't you want to be there to support their needs as a portrait and family photographer, which is what Michelle is. But the other thing I love about Michelle talks about herself as being a full-service photographer. So she will work with, typically it's mom. Remember, women make 98% of the purchase decisions to hire you in the first place, especially in the portrait social categories. And she'll work with mom on the front end to talk about, okay, where are we going to hang that print? And how big is that print? Or are we going to do a series of smaller prints and kind of build a collage on the wall? And then when that print is ready and back from the lab and framed, Michelle will be there with a picture hook and a level and a hammer, because she wants to get her work on the walls. She doesn't want to deliver prints, and like so many of you, you delivered prints and they wound up in a box in the closet and never came out. Mm-hmm. So Michelle was all about the importance of education, the importance of expanding your skill set. And even if you don't want to diversify, don't turn a customer away. Give them another solution. For example, you hate photographing babies, and your bride has said, hey, we're starting our family. Will you be there to take the baby shots? And you hate it and you don't do well at it. Then say, well, you know what? I don't normally do that, but boy, I've got a friend that's got the skill set. And introduce your client to a solution.
So for the next one, what I like about this one is that it actually relates to Michelle and what you were saying about practicing, expanding your skill set. And this is the point about we should never miss a moment of creativity. and specifically our interview with Bobby Lane, she talked about the importance of practicing creativity as opposed to waiting for that magical moment of inspiration to strike. And I think as photographers, and really more accurately as artists, because we are artists, it's easy to fall into that trap of waiting for that magical moment of inspiration. I remember as a kid, before I ever picked up a camera, I loved to draw. And I would literally sit there for hours with my pencil trying to figure out what to do, what to draw, waiting for inspiration to strike. And it can be so frustrating. And so as photographers, especially if we are paying the bills in part or in full with our photography business, it's easy to get a bit stale in our creativity. And if you're shooting the same thing over and over again, that can contribute to being stale. Also, waiting to feel creative, especially if you're shooting the same type of images, it's easy to lose that sense of creativity. And so talking to Bobby, it was so inspirational hearing about how she makes it a practice, that concept of practicing creativity, going out for a walk, even if you have no idea what you're going to shoot, looking for things that might be interesting or maybe that are not interesting, but you take photos of it anyway. And this all relates to learning to be proactive in our creativity while at the same time expanding our skill set. Because if you're going out and shooting something that you don't normally shoot, or say you're a portrait artist, a portrait photographer, but you go out and shoot nature, well, you are essentially expanding your skill set as far as nature photography. And you never know, that can tie back into your business. Say if you're shooting a portrait out in the park or in nature, or getting used to different lighting situations. And so that all just contributes to our diversity as photographers. So personal projects are just so helpful for creativity.
Well, and that's a fun part of Bobby. Bobby, like all of our guests, they all walk the talk. Mm-hmm. And Bobby, in fact, recently you shared a blog post on Platypod of Bobby, and she's using Platypod on their trip to Iceland. Mm-hmm. In fact, if this is meant to sound like an infomercial, but if you're looking for some great trips, check out Bobby Lane and Lee Veras, because they're always hosting and playing the role of photo guides on a lot of different tours around the world. But Bobby walks the talk. So she's known as a commercial editorial photographer, but the reality is that Bobby can shoot anything and makes it a point to keep pushing the edge of that envelope. So good stuff. And that goes back into, there are common denominators through everything here, because Peter Hurley joined us the following month, and he talked about the importance of putting your clients at ease. And that comes with talking with them, listening. There's that old line about you've got two ears and one mouth, so listen twice as much as you talk. And again, it becomes relationship building. A lot of the time, just very short term. You've got a client there, you're doing a headshot, and that's what Peter's best known for, although there's nothing Peter can't shoot. You've got this short-term opportunity. You've got to get a headshot. Let's say it's an executive, male or female, doesn't matter, but their time is very limited. You've got to put them at ease. You've got to make it fun. You've got to get them relaxed. And you've got to remember that when put in front of a camera, not everybody is as relaxed as you are behind the camera.
Right.
And it's fun with Peter Hurley because Peter spent a great deal of his time in front of the camera early on in his career and moved to behind the camera when he decided he wanted to be a professional photographer. And everything that he teaches and shares about putting a client at ease is all based on things that he learned as a subject in front of the camera over the years. And it's so important because when they're relaxed, you get these natural smiles. You get that interaction. You get that sparkle in the eyes that you don't get with, 1, 2, 3, say cheese.
Oh, absolutely. It makes all the difference in the world. And just to share a tidbit from Peter's workshops, I don't know if he's doing this. He may still be doing this now for all I know, but he certainly did it in the past and mentioned that during his workshops with photographers, he will pretend to be the subject. He'll sit himself in front of the lights and pretend to be the client. And he will take the cues from the photographer. And so if the photographer's not interacting with him or giving him cues or making it enjoyable, Peter will, pretend that he's not comfortable. And that's real life. when you're interacting with a client. And if you're not making them comfortable, because they will take their cues from you, and I'm not just implying, turn your head this way, turn your head that way, but even your level of confidence. If you're not confident, they won't be confident. If you're nervous, they will reflect that nervousness back to you. And so with Peter, it is so very cool how he is essentially teaching photographers how to interact with their subjects, which again, all goes back to relationship building, really.
And this is kind of a sidebar, but it's sort of related, and it might be a great tip for everybody listening, especially if you're a portrait photographer. Don Blair always had his subjects lick their lips, and I thought, oh, that's because he doesn't want this, dry look. He wants a little bit of reflection, something in the light, by moist lips versus dry lips. And he laughed at me when I said, why do you do that? Because I had to ask. And he said, because it relaxes the muscles in their face.
Ah.
And it's just that split second. So it's still short-term relationship building, but it was just such a great tip over the years that Don, he wasn't really doing it to get them to moisten their lips. He was getting it because he wanted them to relax the muscles in their face. And to Peter's point, you get them talking and thinking about how relaxed they are and having a good time with you, you get those natural relaxed looks.
Exactly. And so let's say we've just wrapped up a photo session with the client, and we come to the point where we need to talk about pricing, or even to correct that, because this does bring us to our next point. You should be talking about pricing before the photo session ever happens, obviously. But still, after the photo session, you do need to close the sale. And so this brings us to the point about the importance of showing the value of our products and not falling victim to thinking that price is the key motivator. Now, we had Sarah Petty on the show, and she is an absolute marketing guru for photographers. It is amazing how vast her knowledge is. And one of the points that she made that really struck me when we were chatting with her was that as photographers, we tend to make incorrect assumptions about our clients based on price. And to get even more specific, and I've done this myself, we tend to assume that the clients that we're interacting with have price limitations that line up with their own financial situations. I hope I'm saying this in a way that makes sense. And I'll try not to get ranty, but I think pricing is a very sensitive point with all photographers. And, to be frank, it is as important as the photo session itself. And so while it's important to know how to interact with clients during the photo session, we also need to know how to interact with them regarding our pricing. Now, another point Sarah made was that we need to remember that people don't buy what they need. They buy what they want. And so that process of getting them excited for their upcoming photo session, that starts from conversation number one. Whether they email you or call you on the phone and you get together for a consultation with them to talk about what they want and discussing the pricing, you don't want to be the cheapest photographer because that makes you a commodity. You need to price yourself according to the value that you bring to the table. And also understand that people are often more willing to spend. They're willing to spend more than you would assume. If you say to yourself, I'd never spend $500 on a photo session, a family photo session. Okay, well, looking at your clients and your key demographics, they may very well be willing to spend that and more. And so it's important that we don't limit ourselves on price, but really express our value. I hope that made sense.
That made total sense. In fact, years ago, Dennis Reggie made a comment, and Dennis was one of the first people to ever say to photographers, why should we be the last to get paid? And he was talking specifically about wedding photographers because the flowers have died, the food's been eaten, the dress will never be worn again. Grandma's been taken back to the nursing home, and yet the photographer is the last to get paid. Yeah. And he talked about pricing and value, and he also made a comment about don't price your work based on what, in fact, his exact quote was, don't price your work based on what you can afford. It was years before I could afford myself. So you have to look at the value, and that's such an important part of establishing and building your business. I see so many photographers sit there and go, oh, I can't charge that for print because it only cost me, $5 at the lab. But everybody seems to forget all the things that go into building your career and getting that education And then when you sit there and you look at a client and you go, oh, well, they don't have a Louis Vuitton bag and they're not dressed right. They're not going to want my high price, so I'm automatically going to come in lower. Stop making incorrect assumptions, especially when it's based on price. Put the value out there, help people, help educate them and get them to understand you're not photographing them and you're not creating a wedding album, for example. You're creating the first family heirloom of a brand new family. That's got a lot more value than just a book of pictures.
You said it.
So, yeah. So from Sarah, we had a lot of fun with Reed Callanan, who is the founder and director of Santa Fe Workshops. And what I walked away from that conversation was how much fun it is to take those looks in your rearview mirror from time to time. I mean, a lot of times I've written blog posts and I've talked about how you can never go back and you've got to stay focused going forward. And you can't worry about what happened in the past. But there are times, like the image he shared of himself with Muhammad Ali, that you look back in your rearview mirror and those memories are another brick in the foundation of what makes you feel good about your career choice. And everybody, and I don't care how good or bad you think your skill set is at this point, even if you've been in the industry just a short amount of time, let's just say a year or two, you've got a couple of milestone moments that when you look back were the equivalent of that 30-foot putt that you made that kept you playing golf. I mean, I hate the game. I don't, and I'm not good at it, but for years, on and off, I did play, and what at least got me there was sort of a what-if attitude. And it's sinking that one putt that said, oh, God, that felt great. All right, let's play one more hole. So with Reed, it was the importance of you've got to stay focused on your future. But as you stay in this business, and this is an amazing career. I mean, I've been in it my entire adult life, or as I always say, that part of my life that I was supposed to act like an adult. And if you stay focused on your future, you've also got every day, you've got another day in your past to look back and just say, what did I learn? And not to turn it into a science project, but just fun to be able to take the time to look back, which is why I love Throwback Thursdays. And it's why I suggest to all of you when you do a blog post, you're all looking for content, use Throwback Thursday as a way to remind people how important those memories are. And use that as a way to reach mom because the family's changing, the kids are growing. It's another holiday season and another year is about to close. Use your Throwback Thursday posts to emphasize the importance of capturing those memories.
For sure. And appreciating the past with your own business. That's a great way to keep us as photographers motivated and excited for the future. And it also fights the comparison game. It's so easy to compare ourselves to what other photographers are doing or saying, oh, this other photographer, they won this award or they won, they got this type of recognition. But staying focused on the positive aspects of your own business is so very powerful.
It all works.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. And, the next person that I really want to bring up is the mastermind himself, Don Komarechka. Now,
the mad scientist.
Oh my goodness. His work is amazing. It's outstanding. We will have a link to his interview so that you can check out a taste of his work directly in the show notes, as well as everyone else that we mentioned on the show today. But Don, his attention to detail. Now, he is like the king. I think of him as the king of special projects. And his work, he's taken amazing images with insects. I mean, his macro work is outstanding. Snowflakes, ice and frost, water. It's unreal. It's unlike anything that you've ever seen. And he really brought up a great point about the importance of special projects. And so, like Bobby Lane's interview, he talked about how he will proactively set up these amazing macro scenes and he'll shoot essentially much of the time what he wants to shoot and he'll put it out there and then potential clients will see his work and come to him and say, we really love what you did. And so his foundation is based on his passion for special projects and his unique style. And for all of us, this really just hammers home. I want to hammer home that point again, that special projects are a great way to explore what you are curious about or a passion that you have that maybe you're not yet doing for clients. It's okay. Explore something that you're curious in, and it'll help you build your skill set. And, you never know, the clients that are a perfect fit for your special projects can start to find you.
John is the guy that goes out there and helps to shift the paradigm. So we can sit there all day long and say, well, look at that. That's the way it's always been. And there it is. It's a paradigm. It's not going to move. And then Don turns around and challenges how he's lit something and how he's done something. And he gives us a closer look at a world, especially the macro world, that we just have never seen. There's an image that we have, and I think it's in the header on the original podcast, and I've also used it at SCU, where Don has a shot of an ant walking on a blade of grass with water drops and a flower in the background, and it's just a look at a world that we never ever see. And all of these special projects he does turn into books, or at least two of them. And there are more that I'm sure will come over the years. So it is great. We're back on special projects again. But along with special projects, we kind of go full circle where we started a little bit with Karen, because Terrell Lloyd joined us. And if there's one thing that I always walk away from whenever I see Terrell, it's never let go of your dreams. And Terrell had a dream. In this case, he was headed towards becoming a pro bowler. I mean, this is for those of us that have bowled, and I'm not a regular. He was taking it to the pro level. That is a unique segment of sports and motivation and practice. Well, he also had a passion for sports photography. And today he's head of photography for the San Francisco 49ers. And shortly, it was probably about a month before we did the podcast, Terrell was here, and he was photographing. Tampa Bay was playing the 49ers, and Sheila and I got out to dinner with him that night, and we just talked about his career and the passion he has and the way that passion grew over the years. And it was all about staying focused on pursuing his dream. And again, this is where relationship building came in, where there were people along the way that gave him his first break at a particular starting point within, shooting for the 49ers. And that grew, and then staying focused on what he loves to do most. And I had a lot of fun at that particular game because we were way up in the stands, but I was watching Terrell work down on the field. And he puts the same energy into every shot that each of you put into a portrait session. And I know a lot of people think, oh yeah, they're on the sidelines, but you have to know the players, you have to know the sport, you have to be able to anticipate who's going where and when that ball is going to be thrown past, somebody's going to be tackled, and the work just becomes outstanding. And in Terrell's case, he's got a team of people now that he's got to motivate. So it was a great lesson in, you don't let go of your dreams, and you just keep moving along, building relationships, and doing everything you can to achieve those goals that you set out for yourself.
That it's so cool. And even talking about never letting go of our dreams, I mean, I feel a little tickle of excitement. Just, it's anyone listening, don't lose sight of your dreams. It's easy to get lost in the day-to-day of life and business and social media and all of that. But it is so important that we don't let go of what our dreams are. And an important part of pursuing our dreams is knowing what they are, and more specifically, understanding why and how we're motivated to take pictures and to make pictures, and what our photography really means to us as artists. And that brings in the photographer and published author, Rick Salmon, that we had on the show. Now, he has a best-selling book out in photography right now, and it's best-selling, and it has no photos, no images. It's all text.
Not one photograph.
Not one photo. And it's making the bestseller list, and it's for photographers. It's aimed for artists. It's called Phototherapy, Motivation, and Wisdom, Discovering the Power of Pictures. And he makes the point in the book that equipment, a new filter, a new camera, a new lens, that can help you make better photos, but they don't necessarily make you a better photographer. And what I love about Rick is that he really tackles the personal, the emotional side of being an artist. And even just looking at some of his reviews on Amazon, one person who purchased the book and gave it 5 stars, he has a ton of 5-star reviews, I think all 5-star reviews at this time, but they called his book therapy, phototherapy. And I love that because it is so easy as photographers who are running a business to lose sight of the emotional work that is involved. And that's when you see photographers who are burned out, who are tired, who leave the business. And so this particular reviewer, they called it phototherapy. And then he said it's cheaper than a therapist, just as effective. Another reviewer called it emotional work and health photography. Rick, I highly encourage you to check out Rick's book because it tackles a part of the industry, a very personal part that can essentially be lost. And so when you tackle, the emotional aspect of being a photographer, that will make your business that much more sustainable in the long term and that much more enjoyable.
Well, there's a lot of stress in being a business owner.
Oh my goodness.
And I don't care. I mean, you can own a drugstore, you can be a dry cleaner, you can have a Dairy Queen. It doesn't change the fact that there's a lot of stress. We are one of the only careers where not only is our is the career in photography, can it be stressful, but it also can be, and you just said it now, can be the therapy. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's so many photographers I know that when stressed, there are times when they will just take out their camera and go shoot for themselves. Mm-hmm. And that goes back to things that Bobby talked about and Karen talked about and Terrell. I mean, everybody talking about the fact that as an artist, you need to take that time. And this is where special projects come back in. But you've got that ability to be able to take your day in, day out main tool of your career and use it to just relax and take the edge off. I know there are times when I'm under deadline and I've got writer's block and I can't get it together. And what a kick it is. We put in a butterfly garden a couple of years ago. What a kick it is to be able to take a Lumix camera out and just spend a little while photographing bugs and flowers. Mm-hmm. And it does become relaxing. And you and I have talked about it too, in terms of, you going for a walk and, everybody thinks there's nothing to photograph in their area. And then you found that great image of that freighter at Port Huron and you sat down and you talked about, I need therapy. And that was time just to take a break.
Cheaper than any therapist, more effective. Yeah. Let me tell you.
And speaking of cheaper than any therapist, or being a therapist, let's talk about coaching, because Lucy Dumas joined us just this past month and reminded us of the importance that your clients need a coach too. It's not just about the fact that all of us need somebody to mentor, but in terms of building a relationship with your client and becoming an advisor, you want to do that. You want to be the trusted advisor when helping them, when you're trying to close the sale and when you're making sales. You're not selling photographs, remember. We don't want to be a commodity, but you're selling intangible memories that have been turned into something tangible. And that's why I've always said in the past that photographers are the greatest magicians in the world, because you take memories and you turn them into tangible things that people can hold and look at for the rest of their lives and pass on to other generations. And it's so important to build that relationship. But there was another piece of talking to Lucy that I want to hit on too. And because Lucy also does business coaching, it's important for you to remember that there are people in this industry that are there to help. And so often I've talked with photographers that are frustrated and they finally just crashed and burned. And most of the time it could have been avoided because if they had just asked for help early on. And that includes people like me and Shamira and a lot of the writers and a lot of the other podcasters that are part of the Photofocus team. Everybody is out there. There's so many people in this industry that, like Lucy, are there to say, hey, if you need some help, pick up the phone and call me. You don't need to always feel like you're going it alone. So at the same time, we talked about the importance of helping your clients and being a trusted advisor to your clients. The same thing happens in terms of each of you needing to identify those few people that are part of your inner circle that you need to be comfortable saying, hey, can you just hear me out and tell me if I'm on the right page? I mean, it doesn't mean that they're always going to have the answers, but just having somebody to talk to and somebody to play the role of a coach.
Oh, for sure. That's how I've shared this before. That's how I got into podcasting. That was the reason. I was running my own business. I felt like my own island of not knowing anything as far as my photography business. And, I needed an excuse to talk to other photographers who were inspirational and successful. And it has made all the difference in the world. And that, applies to everyone, whether you start a podcast or not. Skip, I love your point about just talking to your buddies and bouncing ideas off of them. There's that route, or you could pay for a coach. And by the way, every photographer I've talked to who has paid for a photography coach and has gone into the process very dedicated and with specific goals, they have made it clear that it was absolutely worth every penny, worth the investment, and they made their money back relatively quickly. And so, coaching goes a long way.
Yeah, and a lot of times you need another pair of eyes.
Yes.
And you need a clear head. We are all too close to our own business. We all do things, every day that somebody could take a look at and say, why do you do it that way? Did you ever think about doing it this way? And it's sort of like early Photoshop days when Julianne used to share things, the queen of Adobe, and she would share shortcut tips, and people would go, oh my God, I've been going the long way around trying to do that, and here's the shortcut. Well, the same thing applies to your business. And in fact, Shamira, as we wrap this up, fortunately for me and you getting into the podcasting side, in March, we will be celebrating 3 years of podcasts together. And if I had to guess, I'd say there were probably about 80 or 90 podcasts into the relationship, and neither of us are sick of each other yet.
That is crazy. Which oh, my goodness. I know I'm not sick of you. So, I'm glad the feeling is mutual.
Yeah. And for everybody, if you don't know, Shamira and I do this podcast together with Photofocus, and then we do Beyond Techniques. It's sponsored by Platypod, and it's also on the Photofocus network. And then we do Tamron Recipes, which is part of SCU. And then we've got, Shamira's got her own podcast. Which I've
had you on.
Which I've been on. And then we've got little mini podcasts that we do that just relate to specific things now and then, like the Y Project on SCU, which is one photographer, one image, and one backstory. So podcasting has become a very fun part of our lives. And in terms of wrapping up the year, because we are out of time, and I'll say this before Shamira beats me to it, and she's going to add to it, I know. We are so appreciative to all of you out there, because we wouldn't be doing this if you guys didn't like it and give us feedback and ideas. And I just want to wish everybody, no matter what holiday you celebrate in December, just a very happy, successful, healthy, and peaceful holiday season for yourself and the people you care about.
Well said. And, I have to say, you and I do get around, don't we, Skip, as far as these podcasts? It's been an absolute pleasure. And we have our shared passion for the industry and helping the industry improve as a whole, because helping other photographers, it ultimately helps our own businesses as well. And, it's about creativity. It's about collaboration. There's enough to go around for everybody. And so that's why we love doing these podcasts. The conversations that we've had with our guests have been inspiring, business changing, and life changing. And when Skip mentioned earlier in the show that after every interview that we have, we spend 10 or 15 minutes afterwards going, whoa, that was amazing. He wasn't kidding. That's absolutely true. We do that. And we send much love to all of our listeners. And Skip, I do want to make sure and ask one of my favorite questions. Where can our listeners find you online?
Right now, it's cleaning up after 2 puppies. So you'll find me in the backyard or somewhere in the house, because somewhere in life, Sheila and I decided we were too old yet to get 2 puppies at the same time. But you'll find me at skip at MEI500.com. You'll find everything that I write typically at skipcohenuniversity.com. You'll also find Shamira there, and you'll also find both of us contributing to content over at platypod.com. And it's just been an amazing year. We want to hear from you guys on more feedback, on people you think we should have on as guests. And Shamira, where are they going to go to find you?
Folks can send me an email at shamira@photofocus.com. That's my first name, CHAMIRA @photofocus.com. And yes, feel free to hit us up with questions, ideas, feedback. We are super excited for 2020. We have exciting things in store. And we just want to thank our listeners for joining us today. Please tell your friends about this podcast, especially if they want to bring their photography business up to the next level, especially for the upcoming new year. We look forward to having you all with us next time on Mind Your Own Business, brought to you by Photofocus and Skip Cohen University.